going to demonstrate for you the 2-color monomer liquid and polymer powder nail enhancement using sculpting forms. So first, you're going to clean the nail with acetone to remove any existing polish and to clean the nail off and get it good and ready for application. And then we're going to push back our eponychium once again to remove any cuticle skin, expose any cuticle tissue that's hiding, and then we can gently scrape it off or use our curette if we have one to just remove it. So just get it off the nail plate. And then we're going to use our 180 grit side of our double-sided file, the finer side, to remove shine off the natural nail. You always have to remove shine before you put product on because our natural nails produce oils. And we're always going to have oils. Another reason I wear gloves, because if by some chance I touch the nail while I'm working on it, I'm not reapplying my oils back to it. Okay, so once we remove our shine, we're going to clean it with our manicure brush that's clean and disinfected. Then we're going to apply a dehydrator. So our dehydrator removes all the oils in the nails. Once again, we have to remove the shine and make sure there's no oils underneath our shine. We want to make sure it's good and dry. So once that dries, it'll go back to chalky. Then we're going to position our nail forms. So when you are sculpting with a nail form, you want to make sure that the center line on the form is going to be straight down the center of their nail, because this is going to determine how crooked or straight the nail is. So we slide it under your free edge, and when you get it under there the way you like it, make sure, it's hard to see, make sure your points are going to pinch together, because that's going to help keep the nail straight. So if you can get these to line up, then it'll be straight coming out from the front. So you want it to be flush under the nail, because as you can see, the sidewall comes straight out from this line right here, and there's no gap, and there's going to be a line over here that's going to come out straight from the sidewalls. So these lines right here a lot of times help you determine where to put it on the nail to give you a guide as to where the product's going to sit. So that's going to be our form application. So now we're going to apply primer only to the natural nail. Of course, the form doesn't need primer because it's paper. All right. So now we're going to prepare our pink and white powder. So today we're doing our 2 colors. So we have our pink powder and our white powder. So like once again, I don't open my powders and get my liquid open until I'm ready to use them because of all the dust and stuff. So we have our white, our pink, and then our liquid. So first we're going to build our free edge up with our white. So I know a lot of times people see this done with the pink first and then the white, but we're going to learn the traditional method, which is the white first. So once you place your first white bead on the free edge, you want to connect it to the natural nail, and then you're going to work it down as long as you want it. So I'm going to do it to this 3 right here. So now you take your sides up and push it up to connect to your free edge. Keep your brush clean. Once again, pat it out. Use the side of your brush to push it up. If it's too wet, it'll stick to your brush. So let it kind of firm up some. But you want that side wall to connect to that side of the nail. So once you get the perimeter of your nail, so that's going to be your first white bead. We can do this, we're going to do this in 2 white beads because the first white bead I wanted to build at my free edge. If you were doing a short nail or even an overlay with this procedure, you actually could use your first white bead and you wouldn't need a second for your smile, but we're going to use a second. It'll make more sense in a minute. So now when I apply my second bead over, bring it down to my first bead. So now we're going to clean our brush off. This is our smile line part. Clean your brush off real good. Get it good and pointy. And now we're going to push in the center and drag up the sides. Push in the center and drag up the sides. Keep your brush clean. White is really, really milky, so sometimes it'll get your stuff really dirty. So always make sure you keep your brush clean. So your goal is to go in and kind of dig out a little trench that your pink's going to sit in. So every time you go back in to clean up your white, just clean your brush off so you don't spread that white everywhere. So looking at my little trench hole, making sure that it looks okay. Because the lip that's up here will eventually get filed off. We're more concerned with the trench we made. Because down inside of here, you can see there's going to be our smile line that our pink's going to sit behind. And when our pink sits behind it and we file, we'll have a crisp line. So we're going to let that dry because I'm happy with that. White takes a long time to dry, so we're going to let that sit up a second. And then we're going to go in with our pink. So after our white is dry, then we will go in with our first pink bead. So you're always going to dip your brush in, wipe away from you, drag towards you, and we're going to pick up a nice size pink bead. And it's going to sit in that little white valley, that little trench we made. So you can push it back a little bit, thin that back area down. Holding her up because she's not drying as fast as I want her to. So we're going to hold her up and let her sit a minute. Let her dry some. Any of the overlapping that you'll get right here, we're going to file off in a moment, so that's okay. Alright, so when that sets up, when it starts to get kind of dry looking, it'll be matte, it won't be as shiny. Then we'll go in with our cuticle bead and we're going to apply that right back on top of that other bead. Push it back towards the cuticle area. Use your brush to contour around that cuticle area, tuck in. Keep the product behind your brush and you'll just tuck, tuck, tuck. And then when you get to this bottom area, just drag that bottom half down because that's going to build our apex. So now we have that nice little pretty arch. We're going to file all this through and file that thin, and it'll just be a nice pretty pink and white. We just got to wait for that to dry. So now whenever your nail is dry, of course you can use your brush or your file to tap to make sure it clicks. You're going to pinch the form up under the nail, pull your wings off, pinch the bottom and pull it off, because otherwise you can actually damage their hyponychium by pulling up. So you always want to make sure that you pull down. So we're going to brace the nail with our finger to make sure our little tip don't pop off. And using the 180 grit side of our file, we're going to shape our perimeter. We want to make this a square. So I'm going to hold my thumb next to her skin to protect her skin so I don't scratch her. Same thing on this side. I'm going to use my ring finger to protect it from scratching her. It does look a little wonky because it was so cold in here, but whenever we contour this, we'll shape it up nicely. It'll be fine. So whenever you're shaping, always make sure that your file is going to be facing you. Never do this or never do this. Always be over it and stare directly at the spine of your nail file. That will make sure that whatever shape you're doing is square or is straight. So if you were doing a coffin and you taper it, you still want the file to be square up and down even if you taper in, even with a stiletto. But you always keep the spine where you can see it. So once again, we're going to come up on our left side like we did before, starting at the free edge. I'm going to remove that pink acrylic in the middle, that bump where it tried to hang over. So up one side, across the top, down. Okay, so check from the side. We're going to get that bump out. All right, we're getting there. I knew that area had a little overhang, so I wanted to get rid of that bulk first. That was due to the temperature of the room and the way she is set up today. So check your sides. Make sure you always like the way your sides look, your front. So as I'm filing right here, I'm putting more pressure back here and not down here. So I'm trying to reduce the back part, not the front. So even though I'm going over the whole thing, the pressure is towards the back of the file. Because if you put even pressure across the whole tip, you'll thin the front part out. So it's all about where you put your pressure to where you want it, where you need it. We're getting there. All right. Okay. When you get to that cuticle area, once again, up around the top, across the cuticle area, and down one side. Across the top, down one side. So always remember, once again, score your file with another file or a buffer to make sure your edges are not sharp for this to cut your clients. All right, so there's still a little bump right here. So I still want this to contour up. I'm gonna take it down just a little bit more back here to get that down. This mannequin hand is a little challenging due to the nails being so thick, when you form them, it doesn't sit as flush as a natural nail. So sometimes it seems to have like a graduation, like a dip. But that's okay. We can still get the structure we want. All right. Almost there. Alright, so by some chance you like the way your nail looks and you don't want to go down any further, then you can always put more white in there. And due to the dip, I may or may not, let me see, I might not have to. I think I can get it, honestly. I think I'll be alright. But if you were unsure and you didn't want to go down any further, then you could definitely put that little bit of white in there. It was mostly because of the way the form fit on her thicker finger. So. But once again, if you ever have a dip in the nail, the way you shape it out is don't file over the dip, file behind the dip. Because taking down the thicker sides will even out the dip. If you keep going over both sides, your dip's going to keep getting lower. So you only go on one side or the other, not across it. Just a rule of thumb for dips in the future. Okay. I think Susie just made it difficult for me today, but that's okay. Alright, I'm going to leave it there because I'm actually going to go in and put a little white in that dip just because I don't want my nail any thinner. So I love my arch. I love how it tapers down. It looks nice. My free edge is nice and thin, but there was that dip due to the mannequin hand tip. So, and things happen, you know, this is totally fixable, completely doable. So just get a little bit of your liquid, a tiny drop of powder, tiny. I don't even need that much. Just fill in that little dip. So all you'll have to do now is when that dries, is go back over it with your buffer and it'll be smooth again. So we'll give that just a moment to dry. This is in worst case scenario. Yeah, I was hoping. So once you've applied the white that you were missing, just that tiny little bump due to the nail sitting down off the form, her nails are so thick. So on a client, on a human hand, you won't have that issue because the natural nails are a lot thinner and they'll be more flush against the form. So all you have to do is just buff out that little bit that we put on, and it got our structure just where we wanted it. And now we're going to buff over it, remove any scratches. So always buff this way you file, up, across, down, and down the nail. So up around the cuticle, just seal it in, down, and through. And then once you get done buffing, clean it off with a clean manicure brush. And from the side, you can tell that we have our structure back here, our apex, and then it tapers down to our free edge. We have our beautiful pink and white, and then we have a nice thin free edge, a nice thin credit card, thick free edge for our clients to be able to pick up stuff and not have any issues. So that is our pink and white, two color monomer polymer method using forms.